Ben Pivar is joining us today. He's the SVP and CIO at Carter's. He's been in the tech space for more than 20 years, 12 years in exec leadership, and 8 years at Carter's. Ben, come on up. Welcome, Ben, to the stage.
Thank you, Justin.
Yep.
It's great to see everyone. It's been a couple years since I've been at NRF, and it's nice to see. I think there's 35,000 people here, and I see some folks from Carter's in the audience, so great to see you guys. Thanks for coming. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about our journey with AWS and some of the things we've built and go through some case studies. I did have a couple slides on Carter's to start, just to give you guys a little bit of background. It looks like about half of you guys know us, so if you don't know us, I'll give a little bit of background really quickly. So thank you for AWS for sponsoring this, and thank you for inviting me to participate. Agenda-wise, company overview, we built our own point of sale. In fact, one of the architects for it is sitting over there, so he helped me build the slides. He probably should be up here with me right now. And then also data and analytics. We're going to go through case studies on both of those, and both of those are being run on AWS right now, which we're really excited about. So just briefly, let me go through a company overview. So we are the leader in young children's apparel. You can see some of our brands on the right. A lot of times I get the question, well, why AWS? You know, I know some people talk about competition and things like that. Well, AWS and Amazon is actually a customer of ours, one of our largest customers. So the brand you see at the bottom there called Simple Joys by Carter's, that's sold exclusively on Amazon. Some of the other brands you see are sold at places like Walmart and Target, for example. And then we also have a sustainable brand that we're building called Little Planet. So we have a really strong portfolio of brands. We're number one market share in baby and children's apparel in North America. What's interesting about our business model is it's a little bit of a less discretionary purchase. And what I mean by that is every year when the seasons change, when it gets cold, if you've got children, the clothing they wore the year before doesn't fit anymore. So you got to go out and buy new clothes. And I think all of us who have kids are aware of that. We run a very multi-channel business model. So we're both a wholesaler and a retailer. Justin mentioned 1,000 stores. Retail is the larger portion of our business. We have a website. We do over about $1 billion in sales online holistically, so it's a fairly big portion of our business. But we also sell wholesale to a variety of department stores and other types of companies like that. And we also have a strong international business, although often a partner business. So I think we're represented in over 70 countries around the world. But a lot of times if you see a store, it might be a partner store, but they have to follow our rules in terms of how we set up the stores. We've had a long track record for growth. The business kind of took off when we got into retail over the past 20 years, and we're doing well financially. Here's a little bit of data and kind of the market. We're about 11% of the market. You can see it's a $30 billion market for children's apparel. You can see some of the other players. It's a very decentralized, because all other takes up 53%. But a very decentralized model. So anyway, we've got 3.5 times the share of the nearest competitor, particularly in the baby segment. So baby's really our sweet spot. All right, so now I'm going to run into our point of sale case study. So let's kind of give a little bit of the history before we talk about our vision. So it's funny because I've been there for 8 years and 6 years working on the retail side, including my time as CIO. When I started on the retail side 6 years ago, we were just putting in a new point of sale. So not that long ago. And POS solutions typically last 10, 15, 20 years. So we made a few mistakes when we put in the last version of the point of sale. We kind of went on the cheap. And what we saw was that we didn't replace a lot of our hardware in the stores. So a lot of our registers were old. They were large, kind of cumbersome, clunky. And then we also realized over time, and security's become a pretty big deal, a lot of the operating systems that we're running on with this old hardware wasn't patchable. It was out of date. We couldn't get patches in, so we were worried about the security risk. And in fact, that became really the rallying cry around why we needed to do the project. It was actually based on security. Performance was bad. I used to kind of dread going out. We used to do store visits when I was on the retail team. We still do. And I would go talk to the folks at the store, and we'd talk about the point of sale and whether or not they were happy with it. And they were never happy with it. We would have calls on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and nothing but complaints about the point of sale. And it wasn't a great place to be. And I really just needed kind of the impetus. We needed the impetus to make a difference. So it was a very frustrating experience doing things like endless aisle or save a sale or even buy online, pick up in store. It was integrated with the POS, but the user experience was really bad. It was hard to do. It took a lot of time. It was frustrating for the customers as they were sitting there at the point of sale, and it wasn't good. So also, we were highly dependent on a third party to develop the solution. I won't mention who it is, but the development cycles of getting enhancements were years, not months, which was very frustrating for our team. And then the last thing I would say is the way we set it up, we didn't want to change out the cash wraps themselves and the registers themselves. So we made them thin clients and put hardware in the back, servers in the back, and that became a point of failure as well for us. So that was like a single point of failure, which wasn't great. So what did we want to do? Well, the first thing we wanted to do was change the footprint and really change the cash wrap around. And I don't know that we've completely changed the cash wrap around, but what we have is a very sleek experience. We're using Zebra tablets and Zebra devices. We use Verifone for point of sale, but it's a much smaller footprint than what we had. If we want to change our cash wrap size, we can shrink it down and give more selling space to the store. And I think as we look to kind of store of the future concepts, you'll see very different store of the future concepts, including things like carts that we might take out, because everything we built is mobile capable. We wanted best-in-class security with better oversight, and we didn't have that before, so that was built into this. And by the way, all this was custom developed. We wanted to custom develop this ourselves, which I think is fairly unusual for a company our size. I know a few other large retailers that build their own, but most people use package software, so it's been a big change for us. We really wanted to change the checkout process, and in addition to kind of making it fast from a technology perspective, we wanted to kind of look at the user experience and kind of map the user experience and then map that back to how would we organize the software? What would the workflow look like in the software? So we focused quite a bit on that. We used our business partners in the stores to help us design that, to make it work. So it's really bespoke to how we want to run our business. So it's like we always ask the customer, what's your loyalty number? And we'll look up the loyalty number. We actually have a pretty heavy percentage of customers who are on our loyalty program because you get discounts when you're on our loyalty program. So it's like 80-90% of our customer base is on the loyalty program. So it's just part of our checkout process. And then also, we wanted to build out kind of to a more agile model, a more DevOps model, and really allow us to kind of enhance the solution over time with releases of the software. In fact, I would say we kind of went live with a minimum viable product. And what we did was we made it such that it was what we had before, essentially. But we want to make it better. And so we're continuing to evolve that, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then finally, we wanted to be cloud first. We thought it would run faster. We thought we would have better redundancy. And then we also wanted to build out an API-based architecture based on microservices, really looking to a headless model. I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go. All right, so this was our deployment timeline. So we built this piece of software in about 11 months, 12 months. We kind of had to overlap with the deployment. We did the rollout over 800 stores, and this is including hardware, right? So we have to have a third party go out and deliver the hardware, set up the hardware in the stores, get rid of the old hardware. And we did this actually pretty quickly. So it was a 10, 11 month period where we rolled out our US-based stores. Last year, or this year, we're actually focusing on new features, and we did build some new features during the rollout as well, and also working on development for Canada. So we have about 200 stores in Canada as well. And that'll be deployed in 04 in a bigger way. It's actually starting in 03, isn't it? I'm getting a nod from the team, so yeah, that's exactly right. So anyway, fairly fast timeline. I will tell you the last time we did a POS upgrade with our old technology, it was over a 2-year process, maybe 2.5 years. So this, I think, was pretty speedy, and we're really pleased with it. From an architectural perspective, I mentioned it's microservices based. I also mentioned that it's cloud native, so everything's built on AWS. One of the things that we're really excited about is it's redundant. So we have kind of a hot model where active-active, where we're tied to both the East Coast facility for Amazon and their West Coast data centers. So if something happens, we can quickly switch over. And we actually saw that happen a little bit during peak period this past year. And maybe just to ring out, I'll give a little bit of a update on kind of how this is going. We, in the peak period, I think we maybe had a few registers that went out. We had no stores that went down completely during our peak period and no outages. And that's unusual for us. We never had that happen before. Usually there was a power outage, a store went down or something happened. the internet went down and didn't fail over well, whatever, but we didn't have any of that happen this past peak period. We're API first, I mentioned that, built on kind of this microservices model. Our intention is with this headless model that we're building that the services that we're offering, like pricing and other things, will tie into our website and will tie into our mobile app. So really a kind of a true headless model that we're taking advantage of here, and also able to move much faster. So that's kind of the architecture. And then what's the benefits? So I mentioned store footprint, I mentioned security, I mentioned the speed of checkout, but let me just kind of pause on the speed of checkout for a second. We're seeing 30% faster speed of checkout, maybe even faster than that. I think that might be a slight underestimate. Everybody's happy, like the stores are happy. We did our call this past holiday peak with, we do the Friday call, how's everything going, because it's Black Friday. And we went through the whole call and nobody said anything about technology. So I was like, that is a win. Cloud native. Speed to market. So the speed to market is really around this DevOps model of being able to more quickly develop new capabilities, and we're productizing this whole solution. So we've got a team on the business side that has product management. Steve runs a team that does all the development work, and we're continuing to iterate and build new functionality. And the other thing I should mention, and maybe it's obvious, but all of our omni-channel capabilities are built into the solution. So it's a more seamless experience for the associate and for the consumer. And then I think most exciting to our leadership team is we review OSAT across a number of metrics every week in our leadership team meetings. And we've seen a 5% improvement in the OSAT experience around the checkout. And it's actually been probably the biggest jump I've ever seen while I've been at Carter's in terms of seeing an improvement, and really due to this new solution. All right, I'm gonna run out of time, so let me keep going. I'm gonna hit data and analytics really quickly. This was actually our first use case with AWS. It was kind of funny, when I took over the CIO job a few years ago, we had a gentleman leading data and analytics. We actually called it BI at the time, kind of old school. And he decided to leave us. And when he left, he mentioned, hey, you guys have 6 months to figure out what you're gonna do with your enterprise data warehouse because the hardware's obsolete. I'm like, well, thanks for telling me now. I wish you had told me that a year and a half ago. So we scrambled and we looked at it, and we decided that it'd be great for us to look at cloud-based solutions. And you can kind of see some of the challenges we were having. We were end of life of the platform. We were running out of storage space. We went through a period of this, like August a few years ago, where we really couldn't even get reports out on time every morning for our business team leaders. And you want to hear about squeaky business team leaders when they don't get the reports every morning. It happens. You get a lot of squeakiness. The data was very siloed and not well used across the organization. And also, I think we figured out as we went through this that it was a higher cost model for us. And you can see, I probably shouldn't have it here, but you can see our old solution. It wasn't Natiza's fault. We were just end of life with that solution. So we migrated over to AWS, and some of the big reasons were we wanted to kind of build a more federated data model, and we thought like building a data warehouse and a data lake, both on AWS, would be a better way to manage things in terms of interacting, our consumers who are our business partners interacting with the data, scaling and certifying the data, moving into more advanced analytics, and I'll talk a little bit about Tableau later because we're now a Tableau shop, and then ensuring performance. We did a proof of concept earlier, and one of the things we were testing was to make sure that AWS would scale, and it scales. It was 5 times faster than our older solution. So, and also ability to scale up and scale down was a big deal as well. All right, so just really quickly on our data and analytics strategy, I think you guys may see this often, but we were doing a lot of manual preparation. Everybody loved working in Excel. It's the #1 tool for BI, but it was not well organized. We had different teams that were trying to pull the same metrics that didn't come up with the same numbers. They spent a lot of their time gathering data, not a lot of time analyzing data. We've really deployed over the past year or so many more automated dashboards. And dashboards are important. Like, it sounds like it's just a BI report, but it's interactive. And I think that's what's important, is that our business team leaders, we set up a dashboard for them that's bespoke to them, but then they can use it independently and go do further analysis and drill into the data. And that's been a huge change for us, huge change management effort, I should say, because we were on the same BI platform for over 10 years. People were very, very used to using that BI platform. So we really had to work hard on training on Tableau and things like that. And now we're curating insights, if you look at the right, and starting to get into much more advanced analytics across the different organization. It's funny, it kind of happens in a slow way. You talk to people and you see it happening. You don't even talk about it sometimes with the leadership team, but you just kind of see the presentations that are coming into the leadership team have better insights than we had before. So that's been really, really helpful. So anyway, the situation, and actually this should read kind of more what it is right now. It's old, but we've been working on this. We replaced the data warehouse, moved it over to Amazon Redshift, 5 times faster than what we had before, low cost storage. I think we're paying about the same, or maybe I think it's a little less than what we were paying with our old solution and what we thought was going to be cost to replace it. And also, our nightly batch window runs all the time very well. Usually if we have a problem, it's an upstream system with an interface that breaks or something like that. But we're more like 98% on time with reporting now, and it's just running much, much better. I mentioned Tableau. We've launched Tableau. We've got 4,000 users, including the stores. The stores use it daily. Expensive model having the stores using it, but that's a whole different discussion. We have a small analytics COEMI team, but really a federated model for analytics across the organization. A couple major areas that use it, inventory and pricing. We have a data science team around that, and then our marketing team has a pretty heavy team around data science as well. But we end up working with them even with the COE, sometimes just doing data engineering to help them, and that's been a big effort as well. And let me just see if I can get to a wrap up here so we can do some Q&A. The change, I can't underestimate for you guys the change management on this. We really had to run multiple sessions with people. We had to sit down with people and hold hands. We had a large project where we did a hierarchy revamp, and we used that as a catalyst to do the transition over to Tableau and to the dashboards, and we funded some of that during that project. And what ended up happening was, over a long period of time with a lot of squawking, we did enough training and people kind of saw the light and saw how the dashboards could work for them that we've really done the transition fairly well. There's one group that I still need to work with, but I'm okay with that. There's usually a straggler in that. And that's it. So I'm gonna invite Justin back up here and we'll do some Q&A.
All right, why don't we grab a seat over here? So thank you, Ben. Awesome. All right, so I have a question or two. So let's start with the POS solution. You decided to do it on your own.
Yes.
There are many vendors of POS solutions out there. In fact, we could probably walk out and throw stones at and hit many of them. So talk about your decision around that and what kind of drove that.
Yeah, there were a few things. One was kind of the speed of getting to new capabilities. We found working with vendors was slow, and you kind of had to funnel into their product development process. They have other customers who have important needs, and that all gets prioritized every year. So it might be a few years before you get anything that you want, if you get it. And also, I would say maybe the bigger thing was kind of the user flow and how it worked. It's kind of set up for this ideal scenario, but it wasn't set up for our scenario. So we really wanted to build out a solution that mapped to how we wanted our associates and how the customer wanted to go through our checkout process. And we couldn't do that very well. It was very difficult to do like an endless aisle lookup to see what other product we could share with them. And that's a selling opportunity. So, you know, there's a business case around being able to do endless aisle well. The same with like saving a sale. Like if we didn't have the product and size in the right at the store, it was hard to look up where that product might be in another store. And so we've simplified that process quite a bit.
Got it. And then as you think about the evolution of that point of sale system, what does that look like? What's the future look like? Are you continuing to evolve it, or?
Yeah, so we've set up a team that it's productized now. And what I mean by product is we have a business ownership and they're driving kind of the functionality that we want to build every year. And it's evolving, like particularly around buy online, pick up in store and that experience, the user experience. We're trying to evolve that to make it as simple as possible and improve that. But the big thing for us was moving more to product management so that we could evolve the solution much more quickly. Sure. And that's, I think, been the big win for us.
By the way, if any of you have questions, we do have a couple minutes. You can come up to the mic and walk up to the mic and then we'll get to you. Many other retailers are probably sitting here thinking about evolving their POS solution in some way, form, or fashion. What would be 2 or 3 of your lessons learned you'd share, like thinking about that path that you went on?
Yeah, so I think there's the make versus buy decision, which is the first one. And I guess I would just encourage, if you're thinking about buying, just to make sure it really fits what you want to do and really evaluate the vendors I'll be honest, we kind of felt like the vendors weren't all that great in this space and there wasn't a real star. So we felt like we could do better. And it's funny, right? My background is very heavy package solutions. Most of my career was in consulting. I did 18 years of consulting, and I was very comfortable doing more of I'm going to implement a package. That was what we did. But the other thing I would say is I saw with packages that after 4 or 5 years that they didn't work as well. I was often brought in to do upgrades because I did this for a long time. I had one client where I put in packages and came back 2 times to do upgrades over like a 12-year period. So I felt like moving to a model where we could build it ourselves and then kind of iterate it on over time. And then really that microservices platform allows you to iterate more quickly and bring in new functions. Whereas if you're not on that, and I know a lot of the vendors are trying to go in that direction, but it's been slow from what I hear. It's just allowed us to go faster. So I think that's one of the decisions. I think security is another thing to look at, is just making sure you've got a secure platform. I worry a lot about the stores because it's a very decentralized model. Like all retailers, we have a fair amount of turnover. We actually have lower turnover than a lot of retailers do, but there's a lot of turnover in the stores. And when you have turnover in the stores, you can't really vet everybody that's coming into the stores. So security becomes an issue for me as well, as something that we look at when we think about it, and just kind of our ability to manage what our expectations are around security versus a third party. We kind of feel more comfortable with that. So that's a couple things.
That's good. I think we have a question here. Do you want to step up to the microphone in the front there?
Yeah, hi. So I was curious to hear, now that you have more or less a full control over your point of sale data as it stands, from what I understand from the architecture, what sorts of quality jumps in your ability to analyze that point of sale data, perform correlations with floor data or other things? Like what tangible improvements did you guys see as you enabled this for your business?
Well, I guess a couple things. One, I think we're a little more real time than we were before, and we track things a little bit better. So I think we're able to make more decisions. We had pretty good data before. The data wasn't really the issue, but it was. I think the quality is better. I think our ability to kind of map to products that's sitting somewhere else. I think that's been the bigger thing, is more the inventory management than the data itself. So it's easier to find a product that's in another store in the DC. Right. So I guess it's access to data and the accessibility data. So it's more how we architected it so that it would work better. We've also kind of evolved to delivering from stores. So we use our stores as fulfillment centers. So that means more complexity around kind of managing the inventory and kind of understanding what store you want to fulfill from. And for us, the fulfillment is actually, it's really around customer service, of trying to get to the customer faster. So that's really why we use deliver from store.
Right.
On the data and analytics front, interesting. There's a lot of buzz around artificial intelligence and machine learning over and above dashboards and scorecards and reporting. How does that play out in your business, or does it not? Is it something that's on the roadmap? Or
yeah, so we're doing some of it, and there are a few use cases. One of them is actually with a third party. So our pricing vendor leverages data analytics and advanced artificial intelligence to help with our forecast. So we use an attribute-based model for our forecasting, which then says this product's going to behave like another product and tries to make correlations with the product. And that's been something new that we're putting in. My team, though, is working very closely with the marketing team on what's called a media mix model. And what a media mix model is trying to determine, you can spend your media dollars in various channels. You can put it on Facebook, you can put it on Google, you can send it in emails and things like that. And one of the big challenges is, what ROI are you getting for all that spend, and how do you mix that model the right way? So we're actually in the process of building out a model using a platform called Data Robot to help us to use AI to help us make better inferences around how better to spend our marketing dollars.
Awesome. Ricardo.
Sure. Thank you for sharing your journey. Congratulations on making it. I had a question on platform. So when you think about vision, what do you think about the platform, and is Edge part of that?
Edge is not so much part of it, but from a platform perspective, this was one of my key learnings as a CIO, and I'm not sure this is quite going to answer your question, but it's how I react to it. When I first kind of got involved with thinking about the cloud, I really thought about it more as what I would call infrastructure as a service. And we used to talk about it 5 or 6, 7 years ago. It's like a data center somebody else, somewhere else, somebody else running your data center. But what I would say was our big learning on this is, it's not just about the data center and somebody else running your data center. AWS has built out a whole host of development platforms and development capabilities that we use every day. One of the things we're doing is kind of a serverless architecture. So essentially what that is instead of having a server that's dedicated to us, we're pulling on a server as we need to it. And that's a lower cost model. It's also a much more scalable model. So if we need more capacity, we can scale up very easily. So, if I talk about our data warehouse, for example, Monday mornings, or actually really Sunday evenings, are our biggest kind of job that happens. And because we're more headless, we can make that happen in a better way.
Love that. We got time for maybe one more. Go ahead over here.
So the idea of building and launching a new POS system and rolling it out to 1,000 stores in 11 months is absolutely insane. So congratulations on that. What do you think were the factors that allowed you to do that?
So, that's a great question, because I remember I was on stage getting an award when I first took the retail IT job about six years ago with our vendor, getting an award for rolling out the first POS that I was involved with. And I remember we were struggling to get it ready for live. We had this long-term pilot, and it was running for months, and we were getting all this feedback from the stores that it wasn't ready. And we were about to miss our deadline for fitting holiday peak, so we needed to kind of start at a certain point in time to start the rollout to be ready for holiday peak, which for us, we have kind of a freeze period that happens at the end of October. And we kind of gathered up as a team and said, you know what, we're going to do this rollout over 800 stores in 6 months. And I remember presenting at this conference, and I was up on stage just like this, and I said, yeah, we're going to do the rollout in 6 months. And there was like a hush that fell over the room and a gasp. But to that point, I think we learned how to do it by doing that first time around, and we felt more comfortable doing it the second time around. To be honest with you, it's really an orchestration effort, and I think we had third parties that helped us in the stores. So picking the right third parties and just kind of making sure you kind of are very organized around staging the materials that you need to do the install, the people that you need to do the install. The software was probably not as much of a heavy effort. We had some training with it, but the training in this time was easier because we built it for how the business wanted it to be, and the business helped us with the training, so it worked out well.
Perfect. Ben, thank you for being here. Thank you to the Carter's team. Thank you to all of you that chose to spend the half hour with us. Have a great NRF. And if you got other questions, join us up front.